Hi guys, and welcome to a new devlog of my indie game Raidborn, which is a sandbox action RPG set in an adventurous fantasy world. Follow me along and enjoy interesting behind the scenes footage and actively participate in the development of the game. Now let's see what I have for you today.
Creating amazing cave details, including a goblin brewery and a primitive underground village. The first thing I did was to create some new object collections dedicated to the caves. If you don't know what object collections are, watch one of the last devlog videos. I will link it on the right hand side. Just click the info banner and you can check out that video where I explain more in depth what object collections are. But to keep it simple here in this video, object collections simply is my object spawning system for my level generation. So what I built here for the caves, as you can see, are some vegetation groups for the caves, because you have kinds of vines and grass, and sometimes those those glowing plants with this glowing orbs and stuff like that. And also rocks and stones and different kinds of tents for the goblins with different kinds of detail. For example, sometimes it's a storage tent, sometimes it's a tent where the goblin sleeps or a bed is in there and stuff like that, For the moment, I only add a few objects to those collections and only a few variations, because really it's about getting the generation system ready and about seeing if everything works, if some stuff needs to get adjusted. So I try to really keep the effort regarding the asset diversity and generation diversity. I try to keep it minimal, because really it's about the system. It's about, does that whole thing I designed here work, or where are problems, issues, stuff like that. So I will fill those collections later. I may even create some more interesting and some more diverse collections later on, but it was important to have some collections here for the cave level generation system. By the way, how I normally approach this is that I just build a detail, which we did in last week's devlog video. You can check it out by clicking the info banner if you haven't seen that. There we built the entrance tile. Normally I just build a tile without any collections, and then I extract objects from this detail, for example those tents and stuff like that, and then I build some more variations of certain objects, like for example some plants. I call it a plant group, or crates, stuff like that. And so I just extract that from a detail and then later replace this detail with, or add object collections instead of those static objects to this object collection. That's what I normally do. Next, I continued with building the details for the different cave tiles. In that case here, this is the main tile I am adding details to. In last week's devlog video, I already explained what plans I have for the goblin caves and the style I'm going for, which is an underground goblin city. That is the kind of, feel I want to get. And to do that, I also use a lot of wooden constructions, as you can see here. A little bit like, from that orc kind of city in the Hobbit movie, for example. You may wonder what exactly I'm building here. Well, I had a pretty cool idea, and that was to create a brewery for the goblins, where they brew their ale. And you can see that I also added a lot of this very large storage barrels. So it's not only a brewery, but it's also a storage for their ale. And I think that again is a good example for not only environmental storytelling, but also that I often say that I try to make myself some thoughts of what, in that case, the inhabitants of those caves would do. What would goblins do if they would live in a cave? They may want to drink ale, so they would create a brewery. And that's kind of how I come up with ideas and how I came up with that particular idea. Then I started to add some light and I tried to find a nice mood for the tile. And as also explained in the last devlog video, this sometimes is a little bit tricky because I can't use all of the features Unity offers because I'm randomly generating on runtime and I don't have those levels pre-built and cannot pre-process stuff, which limits me a little bit in the options I have for lighting. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the results, and I think especially when I'm doing some more polishing and stuff, this will look even better because so far it's really just about setting everything up and getting an impression how it could look or feel. But I'm already pretty happy with the visuals so far, and a lot of you are too, as I can read from your comments. By the way, the pink dots you see every now and then indicate object collections, and those are objects which can be completely different. And an object collection, as explained already, is something which spawns objects from an object pool. I always try to add as many of those object collections as possible because in the end they are the key to make the tiles really differ from each other. And if I add only, for example, if I add only object collections to a tile, then it is really completely dynamic and it is totally different every time you visit that tile, which is my goal, you know, because I don't want repetition in my levels in the end. Later, when I'm going to improve that object collection system, because that is what I plan to do, I could, for example, make the whole brewery a collection and replace it with a either a completely different variation or with something completely else, like for example, I don't know, arena, you know, a fighting arena where goblins fight against each other, stuff like that. So that is my plan for the object collection system, that it gets really powerful and is able to spawn basically any kind of object. Of course, also a lot of design work is involved when using those object collections, but the benefit is that my levels, as you can see, are very detailed and are not that generic like they normally would be if you completely procedurally or random generate levels. Every now and then I also create some completely new models for ideas I have. For example, here you can see those herbal packages. I don't know if that's the right term, you know, but basically it's a package made of herbs, you know. So because the goblins need something to brew their ale from, so I thought, hey, it would be cool to see this lying around. And I also built kind of a farm where they have those plants they then can harvest and create this ale from. So again, everything kind of makes sense, and that is really what I try to do with my level design here. And this doesn't only make the level design overall feel more believable, natural, but it also helps me getting new ideas, like for example these brew machines I built here, which by the way are my favorite detail in this main tile here. Especially the destroyed machine with the smoke, that adds a lot of believability and diversity to the scene. And yeah, that is what I'm talking about here when speaking about believability and designing those levels. And overall I have to say I'm really happy with the result, and I especially love those small details like the smoke, or sometimes there is a skeleton lying around with you know, a coin purse and stuff like that. Those small details, I'm really in love with them, and I can't wait to see how players will react to the overall level design. So here you also see a very nice example of a cave tile detail. In that case here, this is an ant tile from the caves where, for example, a boss enemy can spawn if the level has a boss enemy. And my idea for that particular tile was to have kind of a small goblin village with a temple. You will see me build later in the footage here. And also another cool thing I thought to add to this is that the village is still under construction. So you see kind of construction machines, or yeah, you see this platform here which is not finished yet. And stuff like that really adds to the overall believability of the level design and makes it more interesting for a player, maybe even more immersive, because if something's more believable, it's often also more immersive for the player. What's a little bit weird is that it happens that I pretty often build stuff too large actually. That's funny because I always feared that the levels would be too too small and that the playtime per level would be too low. Actually, it's the opposite, and in the end I had to make this cave part here smaller, okay, so that was a little bit annoying, and it happens pretty often. For example, the exterior levels are way too large at the moment, and sometime in the future I have to reduce the size a little bit, and the same goes for those cave levels here. When I started building the temple, I had a very cool idea, and that was to create a Wickerman. But I didn't have one, so I decided to model one. As I said before, sometimes I create new objects if I have a cool idea, and I'm really trying to push the limits of my level design capabilities, and I try to put as much effort into it as possible, because together with the combat system, the level design is the heart and soul of the game. Here's another very cool detail, which is this graveyard here, and I think that especially makes sense because there is a temple also nearby, and I think it makes sense to add a graveyard near a temple, you know. And overall I find it pretty cool that, or to add kind of a culture for those goblins, you know, although I have no lore or something like that, but it's always nice to have something like this and which tells a story and which gives those goblins living here a little bit more character. And I find it just a cool idea that they also have a graveyard and maybe have their own religion and stuff like that. That is why, for example, the Wickerman is also there, you know. They kind of have a religion only through that objects here in this scene. And that is really the very essence of environmental storytelling, I would say. Here you can see how this tile now looks in the game, and I have to say that I really like it, and I'm of course also excited what you think about it, because I think it looks very cool, but it's of course more important to hear the thoughts of the community because I'm building this game for you guys. So tell me what you think about that. But now I will leave you for a moment with that footage here, and I will enable the soundtrack of the game and also the ambient sound, so you can get a first impression of the atmosphere of this tile. Okay, that once again was it for the video. I'm really excited to hear what you think about the new designs, about the details. If you also feel that the game is very atmospheric so far, or if you think it's not, or what you generally think about all I said about the believability of the levels and stuff like that. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts, your questions, and also your ideas you may have. And I will of course read every single comment and will try to implement your ideas and will try to answer your questions. By the way, if you want to get notified about a beta test I may do sometime in the future, make sure to subscribe to my email newsletter. I will also notify you about release, of course, game release, and sometimes I also write a newsletter when I'm doing a cool devlog video. So stay tuned, stay cool, and see you next time.